Hello, welcome back to my educational series From Financial Armageddon to Freedom. This particular subject matter is going to comprise three separate videos. It's going to be a little bit longer than my normal 5 minutes, but I do hope you watch it, all three videos in their entirety, because I think this information is crucial for your understanding of the financial crisis that we are immersed in right now. I'm going to address in this particular video the topic of investment psychology. It's a topic, in my estimation, that is far too overlooked, not discussed enough, but one that is essential for the bankers. Basically, their ability to manipulate certain psychological concepts to get investors to make really, really horrible decisions that really benefit them, because they're the ones making the money off of these horrible decisions where investors lose a lot of their wealth. Now, the reason I came to make this particular video is an interesting story. About 6 years ago, some of my friends asked me, knowing what business I'm in, what was my strongest investment picks, and at that time I told them physical gold and physical silver, and I explained to them the reasons why I was so so strong and so high on physical gold and physical silver, which at the time were respectively trading at $550 an ounce and $8.50 an ounce. And I told them we're on the brink of a global monetary crisis. I basically even showed them charts of the U.S. dollar and how it has lost well over 90% of its purchasing power since the inception of the U.S. Federal Reserve in 1913. I explained that not only was the U.S. Federal Reserve engaging in these policies, but central banks all over the world were massively devaluing the purchasing power of their currencies, and why physical gold and physical silver was a necessity to protect their welfare. So several months later, I bumped into them and asked if they had purchased any physical gold and physical silver. And they replied no. And I asked them why, and they said, well, the commercial investment firms told them that gold was a bubble because it had just doubled from $250 an ounce to over $500. It was likely to crash back down to $200 to $300 an ounce. So they said there was no way they were buying into anything that was a bubble. So that got me thinking, and I said, how can rational people and the abundance of evidence come to like an illogical conclusion and basically disregard facts, disregard evidence, and are unable to come to a sensible conclusion? So for me, it was just clear seeing that the sky is blue when you look up at it, and it's like they were arguing that the sky is green. So my curiosity was piqued about 6 years later when I ran into these same friends and asked if they had purchased any physical gold and physical silver over that time, and they again replied no. And I said, you know what, it's still a great buy even now, and you should slowly start buying in and take advantage of any deep corrections and dips in prices to really start building your positions, because it will more than double again at this point, because we're still in the beginning phases of this monetary crisis. And curiously enough, they gave me the same answer, that it might have been okay back 6 years ago, but now, since it had more than doubled in price again, that it was a terrible investment and a bubble. So this was basically the impetus for me to produce this video about ideological subversion, and how bankers basically use these concepts, these psychological concepts, to manipulate investor beliefs into wrong beliefs about the market, to making wrong decisions against their welfare. So here's where we'll start. Now, an ex-KGB agent, Yuri Bezmenov, spoke about the process of ideological subversion and how the USSR during the Cold War used this process to brainwash their citizens. Now, he said there are 4 stages, and the first stage was demoralization. And he said in the process of demoralization, once that stage was completed, it would leave citizens unable to assess true information. Now, when I heard that, that set off a light bulb in my head, because I said, that's exactly the frustration I'm having with my friends. I feel that even though they're rational, intelligent human beings, they're unable to assess true information that I am presenting to them. And they would rather adhere and stick to propaganda that's actually harmful to their well-being. But the first stage of this ideological subversion, Yuri Bezmenov, this ex-KGB agent, he called demoralization. Well, I'm going to actually refine these four stages a little bit towards the process that bankers have used against investors. So the first stage I'm going to call, instead of demoralization, re-education. Bezmenov stated that the process of demoralization, or in this case re-education, would take a minimum of 1 generation, because he says it takes a minimum of teaching 1 generation of students, so about 20 years from kindergarten to university age, concepts, false concepts that are never challenged. So in other words, you can change the ideology, the ideology rather, of a generation of students by teaching them false concepts for about 20 years that are never challenged. So bankers actually have achieved the same, because what they did, although I would say bankers have used just not 1 generation of 20 years, but I would say they have used multiple generations. So I've been doing this for 60, 80, 100, the past 100 years, and they've been educating multiple generations through the institution of academia. So they've been teaching through academic institutions false concepts about monetary stability. They say central banks promote monetary stability, when the whole goal of central banks is actually to destabilize an economy. They will teach false concepts about inflation. They will teach false concepts about how money is created. They don't teach you that money is created as debt. And that central banks lend money to the government, charge interest on this, and then in turn governments will tax their citizens to be able to pay interest to the bankers. So there's all these false concepts that they teach in undergraduate business curriculums, and even in Master of Business Administration programs as well. So that's the first phase through which they accomplish this re-education process. The second phase actually is very, very clever, because bankers then decided, hey, in order to fully indoctrinate people, let's use a social movement to reinforce the false concepts that we teach in academia. So they latched on to, actually they were one of the original backers of the movement of feminism. Now, since bankers know that they continually devalue the purchasing power of currency in America with the US dollar, they knew, basically since in the 50s, 60s, and even early 70s, since there was only a 1-income household and the man was the breadwinner, and many times the wife would just be a housewife or a homemaker. They knew if they were going to devalue the dollar by 50%, say, over a period of 10 years, that they needed to combat the fact that all of a sudden everybody's quality of life for every household would be cut in half. So what they did is they funded the movement of feminism, because what better way to reinforce a false concept they teach in academia through a social movement that is generally seen as having a societal benefit. So through this funded movement of feminism, they were able to move females into the workforce. But what the females didn't realize, because they thought this was all about equality, which it was not, was the fact that bankers are able to double every household income. So when they cut the purchasing power of the dollar in half very rapidly, everybody's quality of life was not drastically reduced by 50%, but remained the same. So they achieved their objective of being able to fool people through cutting the valuation of the dollar very rapidly, but at the same time doubling the income for every household and combating that effect. So that effect wasn't seen of their destabilization policies and their devaluation policies. So that is stage 1 of re-education.